The development of tourism contributed to English becoming the most prominent language in the world. Some people think that this will lead to English becoming the only language to be spoken globally. What are the advantages and disadvantages to having one language in the world? This is an advantage disadvantage essay. So what did we learn? That advantage disadvantage is a 2-idea paragraph essay, which means that the candidate will discuss 2 advantages in the same para and 2 disadvantages again in the same para, in the other para. So here when the candidate moves from one paragraph to the other, from one point of agreement to the second point of agreement, you have to find out which indicator. So support indicator, find out the support indicator used there. From first point of disadvantage to the second point of disadvantage, what is the support indicator used? And when the candidate moves from the advantage to disadvantage, the candidate should use a contrast indicator. You have to find out which contrast indicator has the candidate used. Okay, find these 3 things in the essay now. I'll give you 5 minutes to read this. There has been an impression that English, which is now considered the most widely spoken language in the world, may one day predominate over all other languages and result in their eventual disappearance. Having one language would certainly aid few aspects, but there will also be some drawbacks. Okay, now the use of which over here makes this a complex statement. You get marks for GRA, as well as the paraphrasing of the question shows that the candidate has well understood the question. So you get marks for task response. Having one language would certainly aid few aspects. So this is the summary, right? Okay, so a structure well followed. One evident benefit to having one global language is that it would enable greater understanding between countries. This is the main idea, or you can say the first benefit over here, first advantage, right? Greater understanding between countries. In other words, when you write other words, you are trying to explain your things better. You get marks for coherence cohesion for using this. Again, the use of if makes this a conditional statement. You get marks for GRA. In other words, if everyone spoke one language, there would be complete understanding between not only countries but all people throughout the world, which would promote learning, the flow of information and ideas. The use of which makes this a complex statement. You get marks for GRA. Okay. Another reason. So now this is the support indicator used over here, right? Moving from one advantage to the second advantage. Another reason that one language would be advantageous is that it would help economic growth. With all people speaking the same language, there will be less barriers and therefore trade would flourish between countries. This would result in a healthier correlation and economy throughout the world. So healthier correlation is a collocation. You get marks for lexical resource. Economic growth, you get marks for lexical resource. Okay. Flourish, you get marks for lexical resource. Okay. So for using these words, you get marks for lexical resource. So 2 advantages have been very clearly mentioned over here. Now, when the candidate has moved from advantage to the disadvantage, this is the contrast indicator used. You get marks for coherence cohesion. There are obvious disadvantages to having one global language. Firstly and secondly is a good way of organizing your answer. It's a very good way of organizing your answer. Whenever you have 2 points, you should use firstly and secondly. This is a very good way of organizing. You get marks for coherence cohesion. Firstly, it would mean that all language would eventually disappear and along with them their cultures. This is the first disadvantage. The diversity of cultures is one of the joys this world has to offer. Each culture is unique with its own way of life and own perspectives of the world, which would all be lost if there were only one language. Got it? So this was the explanation, the main idea followed by the explanation, and this is the conclusion of this first disadvantage. Now begins the second disadvantage. Secondly, it would result in the collapse of tourism because there would be no reason to travel for pleasure and interest if all countries had the same language and similar cultures. This would devastate many countries economically that rely on tourism as a source of income. This refers to the previous statement. You get marks for coherence, cohesion. Devastate, you get marks for lexical resource. And source of income, you get marks for lexical resource. The use of because makes this a complex statement, you get marks for GRA. The use of which makes this a complex statement, you get marks for GRA. For using the word unique, you get marks for lexical resource. Got it? And the last conclusion paragraph. In conclusion is a conclusion indicator, you get marks for coherence, cohesion. There are various advantages and disadvantages of having one language worldwide. On one side, it can build superior relationships. So what did we learn? You have to paraphrase or you have to summarize one advantage and one disadvantage. So this is one of the advantages: superior relationships, greater understanding between nation or between countries has been paraphrased over here as superior relationships, right? On the other hand, it may lead to fade valuable cultures, which is the first disadvantage. So very well followed the structure.